In this video, I dive into real estate market data in Virginia, but not in the way that I normally see it presented, which I find kind of dry and boring. I put it on a map. I'm going to address one statistic in here that is not provided by the MLS, and I think that one is the most interesting of all. My first career was in landscape architecture, and I made a video about that. In my landscape architecture firm, we also did urban planning, and so the intersection of population data, real estate data, geography, transportation, all of that makes a lot of sense to me, and so it's just a natural extension of that I would want to look at real estate data on a map. Believe it or not, I put all this together for myself to get the numbers into my head and to start to see patterns so that I can really internalize it, not just for purposes of making a video. But maybe your brain is wired a little bit like mine and you really like to see the numbers on a map as well. So just a little bit of orientation to the map before we dive right into the numbers. Virginia is a diverse state. We have some diverse populations and cultures, from the Appalachian Mountains to the Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia suburbs to the Hampton Roads Tidewater area, and everything in between. Virginia has some diverse geography. Virginia and North Carolina geography are pretty similar. In the east, bordering the Atlantic Ocean and the Chesapeake Bay and the Potomac River, we have the Tidewater area. In the Carolinas, this is called the coastal plain. This is generally low, flat area, close to sea level, usually good agricultural land, and a good spot for naval bases. Just inland from that, we have the Piedmont. The Piedmont is kind of the in-between land. It's a little bit uphill, rolling hills between the lowlands and the mountains. The intersection of the coastal plain and the Piedmont is called the fall line. A lot of your major East Coast cities are built right along the fall line. I know Washington, D.C. is not Virginia, but for all my D.C. viewers, what is south of Florida Avenue is generally the coastal plain, and what is north of Florida Avenue is generally the Piedmont. The Great Falls of the Potomac River are where the Potomac River crosses the fall line from the Piedmont into the coastal plain. Hopefully that's helpful for conceptualizing the difference between these two areas. Just inland from that, we have the Blue Ridge Mountains. These are the easternmost mountains of the Appalachians in Virginia. But the Appalachian Mountains are full of valleys, and we have the Shenandoah Valley running right up parallel with the Blue Ridge Mountains. And then just west of that, we're at the West Virginia line where we'll stop, but that is the Allegheny Mountains. Farther south in Virginia, the Shenandoah Valley borders the Cumberland Mountains. But we're not going that far south because I practice real estate in the northern part of the state. My office and my home are in Culpeper, Virginia, and I focus within about 70 miles of that, and this video is sticking to that area. So you didn't come here just for geography, you came here for geography and numbers. So let's get into the median sale price. We'll start off in Northern Virginia right at the Washington, D.C. line. Hey, before I go much farther, if you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing that. It really helps out the channel. First off, what is the median sale price? The median means that half homes sold above that number and half of the homes that sold were below that number. A little bit later, I'll talk about the average sale price. The average sale price tends to be higher than the median because a handful of very expensive homes can really drive up that average. So back to median. The highest median sale price in this area and in the state is in Falls Church, Virginia, also called the Little City. Falls Church is an extremely desirable location, very walkable, great access to very high-paying jobs. Median prices are followed very closely behind by Arlington County and Fairfax City. And just behind that, the city of Alexandria, and then Loudoun County. For the past several decades, Loudoun County has been considered the technology corridor of the East, sometimes called the Silicon Valley of the East. There's a lot of data centers in Loudoun County, and Dulles Airport straddles Loudoun and Fairfax. And just a little bit south of that, we see Prince William County, Manassas, and Manassas Park. When I used to live in Washington, D.C., we felt like Manassas was just eternity away. But Manassas and Prince William County are absolutely part of the D.C. metro area. In fact, they're some of the more affordable parts of the D.C. metro area. So Loudoun County and Prince William County inward are generally considered Northern Virginia. There's a little debate about whether Fauquier County is part of Northern Virginia, but I think it was officially just voted out. There's not a precise line of what constitutes Northern Virginia. Regardless of exactly where we draw the line, these counties are home to approximately 2.7 million people. And all the other counties counties combined within this area are home to approximately 1.5 million people. So that's roughly 6 times the land area and just over half of the people. So how is this relevant to real estate data? Well, the real estate market is supply and demand. The demand is people. The supply is available homes. And where people choose to live, where people are willing to pay to live, and how much they are willing to pay to live there is very largely driven by population centers, by mountains, by fields, by highways, to some degree by rivers. And to keep this video within a reasonable time frame, I'm not getting into all the details here, but I'm going to be following up with videos about most of the locations that you see on this map. So we can look at population density according to census tract. So the darker red means more people, and obviously the majority of the population is clustered right there in the Northern Virginia suburbs close to Washington, D.C. But then we see population centers in Winchester, Harrisonburg, Charlottesville, Staunton, a little bit in Culpeper. Warrenton and Fauquier County is kind of peeled off from Prince William County as far as continuous population. And then Fredericksburg is sort of its own population center. It's a little bit disconnected from the Northern Virginia suburbs by a large national forest there, which also affects real estate prices. Hey, if you like this video, please subscribe. It really helps the channel. So all the real estate market data that I'm using comes from Bright MLS. Greene County, Albemarle County, Charlottesville, and Louisa County come from the Charlottesville MLS, which shares data with Bright. Harrisonburg, Waynesboro, Staunton, Augusta County, and Rockingham County come from a different MLS, and I don't have 100% of that data yet, so I'm only reporting on the parts that I do have. So the MLS reports on real estate data according to jurisdiction, and Virginia is a little bit unusual in terms of how jurisdictions are handled. In most parts of the country, you have a town or a city that is inside of a county, and it is literally part of the county. Virginia has an independent city designation. Independent cities on this map include Alexandria, Falls Church, the city of Fairfax, not to be confused with Fairfax County, Manassas, Manassas Park, Winchester, Harrisonburg, Staunton, Waynesboro, Fredericksburg, and Charlottesville. But the independent city designation doesn't mean that these are the largest cities in Virginia. Towns that are not independent cities include Leesburg, Front Royal, Culpeper, and Warrenton. Because those places are not independent cities, their market data is lumped in with the counties. I don't make the rules. That is how the MLS reports it, and so I'm reporting it the way the MLS does. Here's one reason that I think that this is highly relevant. If you look, for example, at Rappahannock County, the population in Rappahannock County is less than 8,000 people. You can't say nobody lives in Rappahannock County. I know some wonderful people in Rappahannock County, but you know what I'm saying. So if we look at under 8,000 in Rappahannock, around 22,000 in Greene County, only 77,000 in Fauquier County, even though it is a very large county, and then only 16,000 in Clark County. These are some pretty sparsely populated places, and that can mean that the market data appears to be a little bit skewed in some of those areas. So when we go through this, we're going to take that into consideration. So back to median pricing. So let's look at median price in Fauquier County. Warrenton is right in the middle of Fauquier County, and it is somewhat contiguous with the Gainesville area in Prince William. The majority of the population in Fauquier County is right around Warrenton. The remainder of the county is pretty rural. So with a median price of $653 in Fauquier County, we're combining a lot of different types of homes. We've got townhomes and single-family homes around Warrenton. We've got a lot of farms in the lower part of the county, and we've got large country estates in the upper part of the county. Rappahannock County is similar, except it has a very small population, and you're dealing mostly with country estates on large pieces of land, which is going to drive up that median price. So Fauquier and Rappahannock are kind of our two outliers. With those exceptions, the majority of the rest of the map, where we see higher median prices, we normally have higher population density. So we'll flip this over to average. Pretty much across the board, average pricing is higher than median pricing. If the majority of homes that sell are kind of 2 to 5 bedroom, single family homes, but then you have a handful of multi-million-dollar estates, those multi-million-dollar estates are going to drive up that average price. I think this next statistic is the most interesting one of all. So the data I'm showing here is the affordability of what I'm going to call your prototypical starter home. This data is provided by the MLS, but it is not aggregated by the MLS. So you might have said in casual conversation before, or you might have heard someone else say, you can't get anything for less than 3. Well, that's basically what this map is showing. Since this is not something aggregated by the MLS, I'll tell you exactly how I did it. I searched in each jurisdiction for single-family homes or condos or townhouses with a minimum of 3 bedrooms that were marketed as move-in ready and that appeared from all the listing details to be move-in ready, that appeared safe to move into and habitable, and that most buyers would not feel required extensive work before moving in, basically paint or carpet. Now, yes, you could have a starter home that has 1 bedroom or 2 bedrooms. The reason that I chose 3 bedrooms is because I think in most cases, because it's going to have higher resale value, you do want it to have more investment potential. There's a lot of practical reasons to want 3 bedrooms. More than 1 kid, home office, guest room. I searched for the least expensive closed sales in Q4 2025, which is what all this data is for. And then I eliminated the ones that did not look habitable. And then the lower end is what you see here. So looking back to that median graph, where I said Prince William County is the most affordable within the DC metro area, Prince William County is also the most affordable on this, with the exception of Shenandoah County, just totally different. In Prince William County, you can potentially buy a 3-bedroom house or condo for as low as $181. At least you could in Q4 2025. It might not be your dream. It might not be your forever home, but it gets you off the rent treadmill and onto home ownership. That's the second lowest area on the map. The lowest is Shenandoah County. But if we look at Shenandoah County, characteristically, it's completely different. It's very rural. It's got the great little town of Woodstock there. It's in a valley between the Blue Ridge Mountains and the Allegheny Mountains. And when we talk about geography and its effect on the real estate market value, Shenandoah County is basically shielded from all the population centers by mountains. To get to employment centers and population centers in Northern Virginia, you cross mountains. To get to the universities in the southwestern part of this area, in Harrisonburg, you go through the mountains. In Charlottesville, you go across the mountains. Shenandoah County is a great place to camp, beautiful place for a retreat, but the real estate market is about supply and demand, and there is less demand for people moving into Shenandoah County. And a lot of us in rural areas don't want many more people moving in anyway. One area of the state that I think is super interesting is the Loudoun County, Frederick County dynamic. Winchester is right in the middle of Frederick County. So if you look more closely at where the Blue Ridge Mountains start to level out and become more of rolling hills than mountains, it's right around Clark County. Clark County is right in between Loudoun County and Frederick County. So to get from Loudoun County to Winchester, I wouldn't say so much that you go over mountains, you go over big hills. And Route 7 runs straight through there. So if we look at the population of Loudoun County, it is one of the most populated areas, very densely populated. And then Frederick County, even though there's a population center around Winchester, much less densely populated. But Winchester is one of the fastest growing parts of the state. I don't think many sources would argue with the fact that Loudoun County has a housing affordability crisis. There are some statewide programs and some county-specific programs to help first-time homebuyers in Loudoun County. But look, in Loudoun, you can't get much of a home for less than $285,000. And then when we go over into Winchester, you can't get much for less than $265,000. Go out into the county and it's $240,000. And these are related because Winchester and Frederick County are starting to become something of a bedroom community for Loudoun County. So Rappahannock and Fauquier counties were outliers when we looked at median and average. They're also outliers when it looks at starter home price. The third most affordable part of the map is Spotsylvania County. We look back at that population density, we can see that Fredericksburg is sort of becoming its own population center, about equidistant between Washington, D.C. and Richmond. Well, the Fredericksburg metro area spills over into Spotsylvania County. Fortunately, there still are some places where you can get a starter home there for just over $200,000. Maybe I'll do another video later about how much income it takes to afford one of these homes. I think some other interesting places to watch are Waynesboro and Staunton. They're cute little mountain and valley towns about midway between Charlottesville, which has the University of Virginia, and Harrisonburg, which has James Madison University, JMU. Those four towns are kind of becoming their own metro area, connected by I-81 running through the Shenandoah Valley and I-64 running east-west. I think one really interesting place on the map is Front Royal. One of my next videos is going to be exploring Front Royal. I think it's a really interesting town with a lot of history. There is not a lot of new housing being built there. Front Royal sits right at the junction of the North Fork and the South Fork of the Shenandoah River. Both of these rivers flow through the mountains. There's a good bit of grade change from the mountains until they get down into Front Royal, and several parts of Front Royal are prone to floods. So in Front Royal, you've got the center part of the town that is relatively flat and buildable, but parts might flood. And then immediately outside that, you've got very steep hills going up into the Blue Ridge Mountains. There are a lot of interesting and really beautiful neighborhoods that are built on the sides of those mountains. But living on the side of a mountain is not for everyone. So I'm really looking forward to exploring Front Royal together. While we're on the topic of market stats, you know that I can put these numbers to use for you. Whether you're buying or selling, you can find me at bradgarner.com. I love going through the numbers looking for good deals. So that last statistic answered the most common question that I get asked of, can I get anything for fill in the blank? The second most frequent question I get is, do you think the sellers will accept less than asking price? Whereas the prior statistics, I think, were very closely related to geography. This statistic, I think, is just purely market driven, not so much related to geography. Most homes in most of these areas are selling for around 97 to 99% of asking price. That's representative of a pretty balanced market. If homes are selling for routinely over 100 or definitely over 105% of asking price, that is a very strongly seller's market. We're not in that. We're also not in a softening market. Rappahannock and Page County are the two counties on the map where the sale price is less than 95% of the list price. But remember early in the video when I said that some of these lesser populated jurisdictions can have statistics that look a little bit skewed? I'm not reading too much into that, particularly because we've seen Rappahannock County as the outlier on 3 counts, where it was the most expensive place on the map in a few different categories. So I don't look at sale price being 93% of list price as anything softening about Rappahannock County. Next up, days on market. This one is specifically the performance marketing period, which includes the coming soon, and it includes if a home is listed multiple times in rapid succession. That's a much more accurate statistic than purely days on market. But anyway, this is basically how long does it take for the average home to sell. Once again, we've got an outlier, Greene County, showing at 25 days, which is the best on the board. But keep in mind, it's a rural, small, less populated county. And I said in the beginning, with some of these smaller rural jurisdictions, we can have a little bit of weird data. Fairfax and Prince William, we're at 36 and 38 days. Very strong. The average home is selling in 4 to 5 weeks in those locations. On most of the rest of the board, we're looking at somewhere around 5 to 6 weeks, month and a half. There's typically 2 reasons why I'm asked the question of how long is it going to take to sell. Most obvious if you are a seller. If we look at your pricing strategy, and I just did a video on that, if we go a little bit on the high side, it could take a little bit longer and we might have to bring it down. If we go a little bit on the low side of market value, then it could sell faster than what is typical of these numbers that are on the board. So if you're in Culpeper County and it is averaging around 54 days for most homes to sell, I'll say if you want to sell it faster, let's price it a little bit more aggressively. But regardless of what we do, I think when planning your life around the sale, plan for at least that much time, if not just a little bit longer. The other reason I'm asked this question is by buyers. Let's say you want to buy a home in Prince William County. Statistically, anything that is for sale today is going to be sold within 38 days. That means we need to time our search, get your pre-approval in advance, and be prepared to act when we find the right home. Because if we don't, someone else will fetch it. Here we've got month supply of inventory. Basically, within an area, if around 100 homes sell per month, and there are 100 homes currently for sale, then you have 1 month supply of inventory. Month supply of inventory and days on market are related, but they're not exactly the same thing. For example, Culpeper County, we have just over 3 months of supply, but we are not seeing homes 90 days on the market. Month supply of inventory and days on market market are not using all the same variables. Month supply of inventory has the additional variable of new houses being listed. That includes new construction, and that includes existing homes that are put up for sale. One other variable affecting month supply of inventory is houses that are coming off the market but did not sell. If you are into maps and you like numbers, I hope that was a nice combo for you. Like I said, that's the way that I really like to look at the data to get it into my own thick skull, and I'm sharing it with you because you might like that too. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, please like and subscribe. More subscribers definitely helps me get the message out to a much broader audience. You can find me at bradgarner.com. The link is in the description. I would love to put these numbers to use for you in helping you find a good deal, whether you are buying or selling a home in Virginia.